There are some actors who don't just play a role, they become it. You can see it in their eyes, hear it in their voice, and feel it in the quiet spaces between words. Viggo Mortensen is one of those rare souls. When he stepped onto the set of The Lord of the Rings, sword in hand, no one could have predicted how deeply his portrayal of Aragorn would shape pop culture. But behind that kingly presence, behind the quiet strength and stormy gaze, is a man whose life is far richer, more complex, and more poetic than most of us realize. Today, we're telling his story, not of Middle-earth, but of the world he's quietly shaped with art, courage, and grace. Viggo Peter Mortensen Jr. was born on October 20, 1958 in New York City, but calling him American alone doesn't quite fit. His life began in motion. His Danish father and American mother moved constantly. Venezuela, Denmark, Argentina. Before he turned 10, he'd already crossed continents, learned new languages, and soaked in the pulse of different cultures. In Argentina, young Viggo attended a local school, spoke fluent Spanish, and watched the rugged plains of South America stretch endlessly before him. Those years would teach him something that never left: to see the world not as borders on a map, but as stories waiting to be understood. But when his parents divorced, Viggo's world shifted. He returned to New York with his mother, a sudden culture shock after years of warmth and movement. There, in the quieter corners of upstate New York, he learned introspection, a trait that would later define his artistry. After finishing high school, Viggo studied at St. Lawrence University, majoring in Spanish and government. He was bright, reserved, and thoughtful, yet once his degree was in hand, he didn't take the traditional route. Instead, he wandered. He worked as a truck driver in Denmark, sold flowers on street corners, wrote poetry in cheap notebooks. For a while, acting wasn't even a thought, just a distant possibility. But life, as always, had plans. When he returned to the U.S. in the early 1980s, he began studying acting in New York. The stage became his home, a place where all his experiences, languages, and emotions could finally meet. He wasn't the loudest in the room, nor the most glamorous, but directors noticed something: depth. His film debut came in 1985 with Witness, starring Harrison Ford. The role was small, an Amish farmer, but it was enough to open doors. Slowly, he built a reputation for disappearing into characters. By the late 1990s, he'd appeared in more than 20 films, yet fame still eluded him. And that was fine with Viggo. He wasn't chasing the spotlight. Then came The Lord of the Rings. When Peter Jackson offered him the role of Aragorn, he hesitated. He hadn't read the books. The character was enormous in scope, a warrior, a king, a symbol of courage, and he had just a few days to decide. It was his son, Henry, who convinced him. Henry, a fan of Tolkien, told his father to take the role. "You have to do it, Dad. That's Aragorn." Viggo agreed, reluctantly, and history was made. From the moment he arrived on set in New Zealand, he treated the world of Middle-earth as if it were real. He carried his sword, named it, slept with it beside him. He learned Elvish. He rode his horse, the same horse he later bought after filming. Every bruise, every scar on screen, real. He performed nearly all his own stunts. His castmates would later recall how deeply he inhabited the role. He wasn't pretending to be a ranger. He was one. Quiet, noble, a leader by example. When The Return of the King won 11 Oscars, fans around the world hailed Aragorn as one of cinema's great heroes. But Viggo himself slipped quietly away, uncomfortable with the noise of fame. Acting to Viggo has always been just one language among many. He paints. He writes poetry in 3 languages: English, Spanish, and Danish. He plays guitar and piano, often composing haunting minimalist music. In 2002, he founded Percival Press, a small publishing company named after a knight of the Round Table. Its mission? To give voice to overlooked artists, photographers, and poets. While Hollywood celebrated him as a movie star, Viggo was somewhere else, editing manuscripts, framing photographs, or painting in a quiet studio. His art reflects solitude, travel, and longing. There are recurring motifs, open roads, faded maps, horses in motion. You can almost feel his life between the brushstrokes. He once said, "If you're true to your instincts and your experiences, you can make something beautiful even from chaos." That philosophy has followed him through every role and every canvas. Viggo's career didn't end in Middle-earth, it flourished. In A History of Violence, 2005, he played a small-town man with a dark past, earning critical acclaim. In Eastern Promises, 2007, his fearless performance as a Russian driver won him an Academy Award nomination. Years later, he would star in Green Book, 2018, portraying the rough-edged Italian-American driver Tony Lip, a role that brought him another Oscar nod and global recognition. But again, true to form, Viggo didn't bask in the fame. He rarely attends Hollywood parties, avoids tabloids, and keeps his private life sacred. He once told a journalist, "Fame is like a shadow. It's there because of the light, but you don't have to stare at it." Even in his 60s, Viggo's curiosity hasn't dimmed. In recent years, he's stepped behind the camera, writing, directing, and composing music for his films. His 2020 drama, Falling, explored family, memory, and forgiveness. In 2023, he directed The Dead Don't Hurt, a quiet western that captured the moral heart of frontier life. For Viggo, storytelling is not about spectacle. It's about truth, the kind that hides in silence, in small gestures, in eyes that say more than dialogue ever could. He's an artist who belongs nowhere and everywhere, a wanderer, a creator, a reluctant king. Maybe that's why Viggo Mortensen connects so deeply with people. He reminds us that strength doesn't always roar, that heroism can be quiet, that the journey, through languages, lands, and lifetimes, is where we truly find ourselves. From the plains of Argentina to the battlefields of Middle-earth, from poetry to paint, Viggo Mortensen continues to live many lives, but perhaps his greatest role has always been his truest one, the artist who never stopped searching.